Now, typically on this channel, I focus on new or newer technology. But in this video, I'm actually going to do a retro unboxing of the Sega Saturn. So let's get to it. So as you can see, I have a Sega Saturn game here, and then I have a box here, and then under that I have another box. So I have a couple of things to unbox in this video. And this year is actually the 20th anniversary of the Sega Saturn launch. It launched in November of 1994 in Japan. It launched a year later in the United States. Not quite a year later, but in the following year, in May of 95. Now, I'm not much of a gamer now, but I was in my youth. And I've played a lot of the video game systems out there. But the one system I never owned, and it kind of slipped through the cracks, was the Sega Saturn. So that's what this video is all about. So as you can see on top here, I bought Die Hard Trilogy. Now if you know anything about the Sega Saturn, you'll probably notice that this is actually an import title. This is a Japanese version of the game. And if you know anything about gaming systems tend to have region locks on them, sort of like DVDs, Blu-rays. They're region encoded so that a Japanese game will only play on a Japanese Saturn. Now there are ways around that, and I will explore that in future videos. But as it so happens, the Saturn I have here is a Japanese Saturn. And I got everything you see here on eBay. This I got for $6.49, which I think is a decent deal. It comes complete with the jewel case. Now, if you know anything about the Saturn, the cases were much larger in the United States. They were thicker and larger, and I'll actually have a game in here that is a North American version. And I'll actually show you what a PAL version of a Sega Saturn game looks like. Now, I got this at a game store, a used game store. They had different hobbies there as well. But I just went there to check out what Sega Saturn stuff they had. And I got this for, I think it was $4.99, a little over $5 with tax. Now, PAL games will only play on PAL versions of a Saturn, which I don't have. But again, I'm going to show you how you can actually play games from different regions on a Sega Saturn if you don't know how to do it already. But the North American version of these games were elongated like this, but they came in plastic jewel cases. So let's take a look right now at the games first here. This is Die Hard Trilogy. Now this is actually a light gun game, and that's what's also in here. There are two light guns and I think it's a Virtua Cop 2 in this box here. So we'll do an unboxing of that in a second. Again, this is an import game. I don't know if I got it straight from Japan. I actually purchased some other games as imports from Japan. As they come in, I'll probably update you on that. But this one came very quickly. So the shipping on this was quick. I think it probably was a US seller. I don't know. But as you look in the case here, a lot of the things when people are collecting for Saturn, especially import or actually only import titles, because this is only the case with import titles, they came with these spine cards. And I guess it's really, you know, for collectors it's important. This is in pretty good condition. The instructions here are a little bit warped, so probably had some humidity, but it looks, you know, to be in decent condition. And everything, of course, is in Japanese here. There are some graphics here, so you can actually see. You can try and make out some stuff, but I don't speak Japanese, and I think I'll be able to figure it out. We'll see. I don't know. What I'm buying for the Saturn are survival horror games, which there are not a lot of them, and I'm buying light gun games, and that's pretty much it. I don't know if I'm going to go beyond that and you know, collect. I'm not really a collector. I just really wanted to buy this system because I wanted to play it, because I've never played it before. I wanted to experience it. As you can see here, the disc is in decent condition. I don't really think there are any scratches to mention on here, if any, so I think I got a good deal on that. Now, don't be fooled by the prices on these two games. Again, $6.49 and then a little over $5 for this. Sega Saturn can be very expensive to collect for. Again, I'm not a collector. I'm just kind of trying to explore what I haven't experienced in the past. I might hold on to this stuff. I might sell it. I don't know. But Sega Saturn, if you want to be a collector of these games, these systems you can get fairly inexpensive. The games can be pretty expensive. I don't think I really have any examples of any expensive games here. I'm probably going to be purchasing some more expensive games as time goes on. But I really don't think I'm going to be buying more than maybe 15 games for the system. So it's not going to be a big expenditure for me. Now, believe it or not, in this box here, Virtua Cop 2 and 2 light guns cost me a little over $52. I think it was $52.75, something like that. It actually cost me more than the Sega Saturn itself. And you're actually going to find that if you want to buy controllers for the Sega Saturn, they're going to be fairly expensive. So if you're going to be buying a retro system like this, make sure you buy a system with a lot of controllers, or at least as many controllers as you need. Because the light guns is what really made this an expensive item. Now, you're also going to find with retro game sellers, they like to price things the way they want to. Now, typically, if I sell anything on eBay, I do it via an auction. Because I want it just to go for fair market value. I'm not looking to gouge anybody. I want somebody to get something at a fair price, and I'll be happy that it sells at a fair market value. But you're going to find that a lot of these sellers that sell retro games, they don't really need to get rid of them, so they're going to price them however they want to price them. And in some cases, you're going to run into games that you're probably going to only have a certain amount of buy it nows, and you're not going to have auctions. Fortunately, everything here that I purchased, minus the PAL game, which I purchased at a game store, and again, it was only $5. But everything I purchased here, even the Die Hard game, was all auction. So I'm pretty confident that I got everything at a fair market value. And I'm in no hurry to collect the games that I want to collect, but when I do buy these things, I'm going to make sure I find auctions, because then you know you're not overpaying. You know you're paying the fair market value for it. So let's open this box here. Let me get my trusty cutter open here for the first time in this video. And let's open this up. Now, the 2 guns in here are bright red, and Virtua Cop 2 is going to be in that large jewel case. Now, the problem being that these things are 20 years old or close to 20 years old is that there's a finite number of these things. And being that they were specifically or uniquely made jewel boxes or jewel cases, there are no replacements available unless you cannibalize older games. So this is actually in excellent condition. I've seen some of these cases. I went to the used game store. They didn't only sell import stuff, but they sold North American stuff as well. And some of these cases were in horrible, horrible condition. There was actually a couple of games at that game store I wanted to buy, 2 of them, and they were in such horrible condition that I just didn't want to buy them. But as you can see here, this is what the North American version looks like. Try and get it without a glare there. And you can see it's a very thick jewel case. And I don't think there are any breaks on this one. A lot of times you find cracks on these, and this is in mint condition. So, or not mint. I mean, it does have a couple of scuffs on it. But as far as these jewel cases go, and this game came out in '96, so this is an 18-year-old jewel case, so it's in good condition. Let's open this thing up here. Try not to break it. There we go. Very unique looking. And the reason they did this, you can probably see how much space is in there. One of the reasons they did that is because they could stack several discs in there. They could put a plastic, you see these rails on the side here? They could put another layer on there if they wanted to put several discs, because these are CDs. Nowadays you have Blu-rays, your games are on Blu-rays. Before that it was DVDs. These are CDs, so some games actually come on multiple CDs. The booklet looks to be in excellent condition here. And again, this is the North American version, so everything's in English. Little bit of a bow there, but again, this thing's 18 years old. It has a right to be a little flawed. Let's look at the disc here. Pretty good condition, only a couple of little scuffs. I won't even call them scratches. Should play just fine. So that's Virtua Cop 2. I've probably played it in the arcades at some point, but it's a light gun shooter. So let's put that to the side, and let's take a look at the light guns here. Now, again, as I mentioned before, when you get into purchasing controllers, you're actually going to spend a good chunk of money, and I'll show you in a future video. There was an analog controller that came out for the Sega Saturn. Now, a lot of people know that Nintendo came out with the first analog controllers for a video game system on the N64. But they weren't the only company working on analog controllers at that time. I think it was maybe a week or two later than the launch of the N64 in Japan, Sega came out with the analog controller for the Sega Saturn. And it wasn't that they just manufactured it in 2 weeks. It actually was made with a game called Nights into Dreams. So Nintendo and Sega were working on analog controllers at the same time. And again, I'll show you in a future video that controller. But the point being is when you get into purchasing some of these controllers, they can be a little more pricey. That controller I think was like $20 just for that controller alone. If you want to buy singular controllers, they can run up to $20. If you buy an import controller, they can run you more than that. So again, if you're going to buy a system, try and get as many pack-ins as possible if you want to save money. But let's take a look at these light guns here, and they look to be in excellent condition. Just pull them both out here. These light guns will not work on modern day flat panel television sets. You're going to need a tube television set in order for these things to work. And here's a light gun here. It's pretty light. No pun intended. This is what it looks like. You know, kind of stylized. You have a special button here. You have your trigger here. And this is actually in excellent condition. This has probably not been used a lot. Judging by the game itself, it doesn't look like it was used a lot. You have a reload button on this side. You have a start button here. It's called the Virtual Gun by Newbie, or Nubby. You have some sliders here. You have, let's see, normal. No, you have set is the first one, then normal, then auto fire, and AF and AR. So we'll figure out what those are. And then you have speed here. So that's the low speed setting, and then it clicks all the way 3 over to the high setting. So that's the light gun. Would hold it like this so that you can pull the trigger here, but then you can have access to these buttons here as well. And then up front here is how it communicates with the television set in your system. So the other one is identical to it, and that's what it looks like right there. Now before I go any further, the more I look at this, the more it seems like this gun, this light gun, is either for a Sega Saturn, which is this, or a PlayStation 1, which is this. Now, before we open up the Saturn itself, let's go back to this game Loaded. Now, this is a isometric shooter, and I think it sort of has RPG elements to it. It's sort of like Gauntlet or Baldur's Gate with guns. I've never played it, but that's what I gather that this game is all about, and I believe it's a multiplayer, but I don't know for sure. But I did just want to buy a PAL version because I did want to see how I could play PAL games on my Saturn as well. And unfortunately, there we go. Unfortunately, the PAL versions of the games, again, you have your PAL, you have your North American version, and then of course you have your Japanese version. Now, being 20 years later, I wish they all were like the Japanese version, because if the case breaks, I can easily replace this CD case. If the case breaks here, I have to find another Sega Saturn case to replace it with, or go without. In this case, the case is you know, it's printed on, it's paper. I know they had different versions of it. This is only one version of the PAL cases, but this is actually cardboard here. So as you can see over the years here on this one was made in '96, so this one is about 18 years old. And in 18 years, a lot of stuff has happened to it. So there's a lot of Scotch tape on there. I don't know if you can see it, but there you go, you can see it there. So that stuff is going to be difficult to pull off. So if you want a mint condition collection, these are more difficult to achieve it with. You get all those stickers and everything on there. There was actually a sticker on here. It was sold in a second-hand store over in Britain, and it was a British sticker there, and then over that was the sticker here in the United States. So somebody must have imported it in. But this is actually, as you saw, I broke the seal there. This is actually my first time actually taking a look at one of these cases here and taking a look inside, and hopefully the discs are in decent condition. But the manual is actually nice and thick here, and you got some fading going on there. It's some browning of the paper there. Interesting. But you have it in a lot of different languages because, again, the PAL territory is Europe, and there's a lot of languages that are spoken in Europe. But that is the booklet, and here is the registration card, and here we go. The disc, which actually has a 5 written on it, or an S, is not so bad. Actually really good condition, so that's good. That's good to see. And then you have on the inside here, you have the Sega Saturn logo down there, and then that's where you stick your disc on. So actually these are pretty nice. The cases are pretty nice. If they didn't have the paper fronts to them, the cardboard fronts, it would be nicer. If it was, you know, maybe plastic, you could clean it off a lot easier. But decent condition, again, only $5, so not a big deal. Well, it looks like this video is running a bit long, so unfortunately I'm going to have to save the unboxing of the Japanese Sega Saturn for the next video. I know, I apologize, but I'm trying to keep these videos as short as possible because I tend to run long. So that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, please post them down below. If you like what you see, please subscribe. And as always, if you want to help out this channel, give me a thumbs up, favorite this video, or share this video. And click on the link at the end of this video and you could see more on the Sega Saturn 20 years later. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.